Just remember, the stuff presented by this creepy bear is from the Evolution 101 website, written by the Understanding Evolution team. Commentary by Rent-A-Friend2000. That's me!
Natural selection at work. Scientists have worked out many examples of natural selection, one of the basic mechanisms of evolution. Any coffee table book about natural history will overwhelm you with full-page glossies depicting amazing adaptations produced by natural selection, such as the examples below. Behavior can also be shaped by natural selection. Behaviors such as birds' mating rituals, bees' wiggle dance, and humans' capacity to learn language also have genetic components and are subject to natural selection. The male blue-footed booby, shown to the right, exaggerates his foot movements to attract a mate.
Oh, well, if the blue-footed booby has an exaggerated foot waggle, then obviously all life has been produced through random mutations and natural selection over billions of years. I don't know what I was thinking. But in my defense, no one told me about the exaggerated foot waggle. There's no way I could have guessed that a bird with blue feet would exaggerate his foot movements. How was I to know? How was I to know? How was I to know? Previously, we saw how natural selection reduces the genetic information in a population. You start with brown and green ones, and thanks to natural selection, the green ones went away. Now we're going to look at all kinds of amazing design, and say that these were somehow created by the process which made the green ones go away? These examples they give are not creatures which we have seen evolve from simpler forms. We did not observe the katydid evolve a leaf form, or the orchid evolve the wasp shape. These are given as the result of natural selection because the authors begin with the assumption that the reductive process of natural selection must have created all of the existing features of all living things. This is worse than circular reasoning. This is like claiming that if you take enough parts away from the Honda Odyssey, you'll create the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Do you know why I haven't bought a Honda Odyssey? Because that doesn't work. Although you might be able to subtract enough parts to make a golf cart. Or a smart car. But I digress.
In some cases, we can directly observe natural selection. Very convincing data show that the shape of finches' beaks on the Galapagos Islands has tracked weather patterns. After droughts, the finch population has deeper, stronger beaks that let them eat tougher seeds.
Apparently, these guys have not read all of the very convincing data. The rest of the data shows how the sizes and shapes of those beaks are flexible across the years. There is no net gain or loss, and the 13 species of finch, which some claim to exist there, all interbreed, making them, by most definitions of the word species, all the same species. When Darwin was there 150 years ago, there were finches with varying beak sizes. Today, there are finches with varying beak sizes. No new information's been gained, no net change has been observed, and the data of their breeding habits indicates that they're all one single species. Yet somehow this is one of the best examples of natural selection the evolutionists can come up with. When I was in middle school, I was on a basketball team. I could claim we were a great team, but when pressed, I would have to admit that the best we ever did was losing a game by 10 points. If these examples are any indication, natural selection is a lot like that.
In other cases, human activity has led to environmental changes that have caused populations to evolve through natural selection. A striking example is that of the population of dark moths in the 19th century in England, which rose and fell in parallel to industrial pollution. These changes can often be observed and documented.
I can't blame them for glossing over this striking example. If the finches are their best example of natural selection, this is certainly the top contender for the spot. What this drive-by reference is talking about is the peppered moth, an insect which, like the beetles in their hypothetical cartoon example, comes in two flavors, white with black spots and black with white spots. The story goes like this. When the Industrial Revolution hit, the soot from factories turned the trees dark, thus making it easier for the dark moth to hide. This meant the light moths were now easier for the birds to find, and the population shifted to have proportionally more dark ones and fewer light ones. Natural selection! Evolution! There are several problems with this story as it pertains to natural selection as a mechanism for evolution. 1. No new information was created. At the start, light and dark moths. At the end, light and dark moths. This will not turn bacteria into wolves and cabbages. 2. The color of the tree had not caused the dark moths to go extinct in the thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution, and so it is doubtful that the color of the trees would make the white ones disappear after it. 3. Even if it did, that is a loss of genetic information, which is not how you turn bacteria into wolves and cabbages. If you go back to those branching diagrams showing speciation events, this is the erasing of one arm, not the splitting of one arm into two arms. It's different. 4. The Clean Air Act of the 1960s resulted in less soot, and thus normal colored trees again. So this example is a short-lived one, with no long-term results. 5. All of that aside, this example is based on poor science and demonstrated with lies. Let me sum it up. The pictures you see in your textbook of the moths resting on the tree trunks are fake. Those moths are dead and were glued there for the photo op. Scientists collecting data for 40 years have found a grand total of 2 moths on the tree trunks, and that photo is not one of them. The moths hide under the leaves, up in the branches, making this example completely moot, and the pictures used to sell it fraudulent, much like the thin and healthy people who were featured in fast food commercials. Six. And I don't think I'm amiss for doubting that any team of scientists can know for certain that they've accounted for all of the moths in a forest, no matter how often they walk around and try to count them. Give that a try sometime. Walk through the woods and try counting all of the moths. Keep in mind, these moths hide up in the branches, and the trees in England can often exceed 6 feet in height. The black poplar, just to name one average British tree, grows to an average height of 100 feet, while the average British scientist does not. But once again, you needn't take my word for it.
The peppered moth experiments beautifully demonstrate natural selection, or survival of the fittest, in action, but they do not show evolution in progress, for however the populations may alter in their content of light, intermediate, or dark forms, all the moths remain from beginning to end best in Betellaria.
This is an excellent demonstration of the function of camouflage, but, since it begins and ends with peppered moths and no new species is formed, it is quite irrelevant as evidence for evolution.
And yes, this is one of the best examples of natural selection that is said to have been observed. Imagine the ones that didn't make it into the textbooks. I can't fault them for choosing these two poor examples of alleged natural selection. When you have almost no evidence to work with, you just sometimes have to put your best foot forward, and then exaggerate its movements. If that doesn't work, try painting your feet blue. After that, you're on your own. Hey, join us next week for more! Yaha! Thanks for liking and subscribing and for sharing this on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google+, and any other way you can. Thanks for any comments or emails you care to send. And thanks for letting me be your rental friend. Ba-da-da-dum-bum.